I recently came to the realization that I'm being watched 24/7, and depending on where you live, you probably are too. And that's not just a clickbait YouTube intro, like I'm being dead serious. A few weeks ago, I got like the video essay bug again, and I was thinking about making video essays again. I wanted to make one on mass surveillance. I feel like it's something we hear a lot about, but unless you're like really tapped in, you don't really know why it matters. Or maybe I'm just dumb. In the research for this video, I was hearing a lot about flock cameras, and I've heard a lot about flock cameras just like in everyday life, I guess. Not like everyday life, but people talk about flock cameras a lot, whether they're super negative about them or positive. I've never really seen anyone be super positive about them, but maybe they exist. But I had heard a lot about them without ever really knowing what they look like. I've never seen them before I started researching for that video. And you know that thing where you're like, oh my God, like I wish I had, you know, this car or these shoes or whatever. And you suddenly start seeing that car or those shoes everywhere you go. That started happening. I noticed a flock camera in a parking lot that I'm in quite a lot. I hate declaring this in like new videos, but I'm in and out of that parking lot all the time because I'm a DoorDasher. I noticed that camera and I was like, whoa, like they're like in my part of the woods. And I don't live in the middle of nowhere. I live like in the deep suburbs of Chicago is what people call it, but it's not really Chicago. I knew flock cameras were probably everywhere closer to where I grew up in the city, but for where I am now, I wasn't really expecting to see them. And so I know what they look like now, and I start like looking for them and I start seeing them everywhere. And after the point of me noticing them and starting to look for them, I actually see new ones sprouting up. Like there were dead zones that I noticed where I was like, okay, well, there's not any over here like for a while. And in the couple weeks since then, those dead zones have been filled. It feels like now that they're like all over the place. And it's not just me noticing them, like I'm literally seeing new ones sprouting up like day by day. And if you don't know what flock cameras in particular are, you're probably like, well, what's the deal? Who cares? There's cameras everywhere, you know? And I get that perspective. The thing about these cameras that makes it weird is that they're like AI powered. And AI is a buzzword nowadays, but it being used for this is really weird. We've had cameras that have the capability to take pictures of license plates for forever, but flock cameras use and analyze the data that these cameras collect in a really weird way. They have archives of footage that they have, you know, AI connected to, so they could do things like you know, show me all the times past 8 p.m. that this license plate was driving, or show me red pickup trucks in this area at this time. And you know, that could be a thing with like a checkbox or something, you know, you tick red pickup truck or whatever, but it also has natural language searching. So you can be like, show me a Camry with rust over the left back wheel and a broken side mirror. And if it's seen it, it will show you a Camry with rust over its left back wheel or whatever. And don't get me wrong, that stuff is super useful for like Amber Alerts or something, but they don't just activate it in the time span when a crime is committed. You might have the opinion, and you know, I've been this way too, where, you know, you don't really care that you're being watched or whatever. You know, I'm not doing anything bad, so what do I have to worry about? I'm not a criminal. But it's worthwhile to remember that good behavior and crimes or not crimes is entirely dependent on who's in control of these systems. And you know, rules and laws change, and some people don't take some laws as seriously as others. There's a story recently about a Texas woman who went out of state to get an abortion because abortion is illegal in Texas, and they used a system of nearly 83,000 flock cameras to catch this woman. And you know, regardless of your opinion of abortion, you know, I'm not saying, you know, one thing's right or one thing's wrong. It's weird that they're able to do that. It's kind of insane that they were able to do that. You know, up until just a few years ago, abortion was legal in all states. And I'm not saying it should be or shouldn't be, but this is what I mean. Laws change, rules change. You know, there's a story recently where in Minnesota, where weed is legal, they installed a bunch of flock cameras in the parking lots of dispensaries. This is near the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, weed is illegal. The goal of this is to catch people who are buying weed in Michigan and then going to Wisconsin. And they can follow them through all of the flock cameras because they're connected. It's a network, and they'll arrest them in Wisconsin. I don't smoke. I don't like consume weed in any way, but I think that is ridiculous, bro. They're using technology that like the Avengers use. I think like literally in the new Spider-Man movie, that type of technology is being used by Spider-Man. They're using that technology that's used to catch supervillains, to catch people buying weed. But even still, these people are committing crimes in their state or whatever. But it doesn't matter if you don't commit crimes. Again, good behavior and, you know, who is and isn't a criminal is defined by whoever is in power, whoever holds the power for this system. Today, that could mean identifying people that were buying weed and taking it, you know, across to another state. Tomorrow, it could mean identifying protesters. It builds a database of everybody's movements, not just bad actors. And what happens when that data gets like misused or repurposed? We don't own that data. We can't just like tick a box and opt out of, you know, that data being collected. It's gonna be collected on me and you. And this data is already being misused before it's being obtained by like outside people. There are police officers using the Flock system to, you know, catch their ex or something. Late last year, there was a guy that discovered a bunch of Flock logins on some Russian website. There's also people who have been able to just find like on the surface web, just video streams of these cameras with like storage of the past, you know? And on top of everything, they're not even perfect, man. There's been a bunch of instances of like false flags and stuff where a car is flagged because it's, you know, this one's involved in a crime or whatever. And some random innocent guy will get pulled over at gunpoint for something he didn't do. It just sucks to think about, man. Like, I am literally being taped all day, every day. Not only by the Flock cameras, but even like Ring cameras. When I deliver food, everyone has a Ring camera, bro. Ring was just in a controversy earlier this year when they were showing off a new feature during the Super Bowl where they could track like missing pets. Like they'll use a network of everyone's Ring cameras to be like, oh, we saw this beagle running around 3rd Street or whatever. And I think they thought people would enjoy that and like that, but pretty much instantly everyone was rejecting it and saying, hey, this is mass surveillance. If you could use all of the Ring cameras in my neighborhood to find my Pomeranian, you could definitely find people that way. This guy's going nuts. I'm not like a political person and I'm never gonna get on here talking about politics, but I don't know. This is kind of something that affects everyone. Not kind of, it is something that affects everyone, at least in the United States. I know there are some places, some cities that are against this and like they ruled, you know, we can't have these in our city, which is awesome. I wish they would do that around where I live, but I highly recommend going on dflock.org. You learn more about, you know, what these cameras do, and you can actually see a map of where they are. There's like 120,000 of them in the United States. There's also places where you can get like directions to go somewhere like Google Maps, but without any Flock cameras on the way. Not that I would ever use any website like that. I am not a nefarious bad actor. When I was a teenager, people would make fun of China for having like the social credit system. It was like a mass surveillance thing where they could track everybody through cameras or whatever and assign a score to any citizen. Kind of crazy that I'm only 24 and it's kind of the similar thing going on now, but I'm not trying to be political. I'm not trying to yap too long. This is just on my mind and I wanted to let you guys know about it because I was super uneducated on it just like 2 weeks ago. If you're still here, let me know if you prefer this style of video, like the cutcom style of video, to the, you know, one take long form commentary kind of style. That's all I got today though. Adios.